Okay, now as far as identifying your targets, hopefully you've picked up those targets already during your scanning phase. But there's many times that you just pick up the fact that it's an IP address on the network. So if you haven't already done something like a banner grab on those targets, this would be a great opportunity for you to go back and see if you can do that on those unidentified IP addresses. But once we've identified which machines are actually web servers, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start looking at some open sources for information about that target. So for example, let's say that it's an Apache server and it's identified itself as a specific version. Well, I'm going to use something we refer to as the internet. Have you heard of that? Yeah, I'm going to do some research on the internet. So besides doing our standard Google search, I might want to also focus in on news groups that are dedicated. Some of them are actually supported by the manufacturer of the web server software program. Others may be just a collection of users who've gotten together and are exchanging information about different things that they've discovered. But I'm going to look at those, as well as back in the old days we had them, and we still do, but they were really popular. They were called bulletin boards. Similar to those boards that we had back in college. Maybe they still have them, I don't know. Where people would put up 3x5 cards saying that they had a bike for sale or they needed a ride to a different location. But these are just digital versions of those. Now, after looking at those different resources, I can also do the famous dumpster dive, as well as even some social engineering attacks. Remember, our goal here is to collect as much information as we can concerning that particular web server. Now, I might want to also go back and look at what we learned in the footprinting reconnaissance course. One of the big tools that we can use there is something called Whois. And with Whois or traceroute or active Whois, we can hopefully determine things like domain names as well as IP addresses, DNS names, the administrative contacts, as well as even autonomous system numbers or ASNs. Now, if you already did these steps back during our pen testing of reconnaissance, just reference this information so that it can help tell you more about that target. Now, we can also search for, again, detailed information by doing, as I mentioned before, the banner grab option if you haven't done it yet. Some of our typical tools that we would use here would be things like Netcraft as well as HTTP Recon to help us to identify, again, a server name as well as the server type, its operating system, and applications that could be running. That application list could actually be beneficial to us when we get to the next module of this course. Now, the reason why we do this is because an IT professional may have gone through and patched the web service itself, but forgot about patching the operating system or about the application. So again, it's all about gathering information, right? Another thing we can do too is let's go ahead and hit that site and do something that we learned about in the reconnaissance stage, which was going through and crawling the website. Using tools like WebCopy Pro or HTTP Print, this gives us the ability to find things such as the code that's actually being utilized to present the page, as well as the web pages themselves. We might also be able to pull out of that crawling results email addresses or images. Now, some of the programs that we just talked about here will do the next step as well, but we're going to make sure that we keep them separate because you may want to come back and just get a directory structure or enumerate the web directories so that we understand where those images are stored or where the scripts are coming from. And we can use programs like dir buster. This actually can give us information such as web functionalities as well as if there's any login forms. Hey, and while we have the directory structure there, why don't we see if we can perform a directory transversal attack where we move up the directory or access directories that aren't normally supposed to be accessible and see if we can actually execute some commands outside of the web server's root directory.